bitter side of sweet, the final chapter 24, and the epilogue. What's wrong? She asks, looking from one of us to another, concerned. We need you to write your article, Sadhu says, leaning forward. What? Mrs. Kaplan is still half asleep. I know you want to get to Liberia right away, I say, but before you go, could you take a little time to let us help you with your article? It's really important that people know about this. She starts. Khadijah doesn't let her finish. You can change your article if you have to, Mama. You can make it an interview of 3 kids who live through the farms and add in the stuff you already have. The sudden gleam of interest in her mother's eyes makes me feel like maybe this is going to work after all. Please, I say, think of all the other mothers in Mali. They may never have their children come back to them. We want to tell our story, Madame. We owe it to all the kids who didn't get away. Please help us. Mrs. Coblin's lips purse tightly. She reaches into her bag and pulls out a notepad and a pencil. Very well, she says, knuckling the sleep out of her eyes and sitting up straighter. Let's begin. We take turns, each of us telling the specific story of how we ended up on the farm, with Mrs. Coblin asking questions to fill in the holes in her research as we go. How many boys worked with us? What were their names and ages? Where was everybody from? How long did we work in a day? Did we ever get days off? What happened when we got sick? How did we get out? The questions go on and on. We answer each one as thoroughly as we can, and Mrs. Coblin scribbles furiously, jotting down everything. By the time Dawn's orange fingers stroke the hood of the Jeep, we're almost done. You see, I say, finishing my story, in Mali, it's traditional for young people to leave home and go work somewhere else for a season, while the old people and the women and little kids stay home and tend the crops as they grow. It didn't feel odd to trust the bus drivers in Sikasso. They were offering jobs, and it seemed like a good place to start. Even when we got to the farm and I saw them arguing with Musa, I still didn't understand. Why was this farmer giving out money before we had worked for the season? And why was he giving it to a man with the truck and not to us? I decided he must be giving a portion of what we would earn to the man to cover the trouble he took getting us there. Then the man with the truck drove away, and Musa handed us some tools and put us on a work crew with the other new boys. It was only that night, Sadhu cuts in, when they first locked us in the sleeping hut, that we heard the truth. The boys who had been there for a while started to whisper, and we found out that we weren't going to be able to leave at the end of the growing season. The bosses said we could leave when we'd earned out our purchase price, I add. But they wouldn't tell me how much we owed, and in all the time we worked there, I only saw boys arrive or die, never leave when they wanted to, and we never once got paid. Mrs. Kaplan drops her pen and massages her hand for a moment. I'm so sorry, boys, she says. So sorry that you were caught up in all of this. It's a vicious, vicious cycle. She splays her fingers across the notes she's been taking like she can soothe the truth out of them, and for a moment there's silence in the Jeep. Then Mrs. Coblin motions briskly for me to go on with my story. But as my mouth parrots out the facts of our imprisonment, my mind wanders. Because though I'm glad to my bones to know that our story will get out into the world, Khadijah was right. We have bigger problems right now. As I come to the end of my story, I'm faced with the more pressing problem of what Sadhu and I are going to do once this interview is finished. Forced to be honest with myself, I can finally admit that going home is not a good option. If the drought hasn't broken, I'll have to leave again to make money, maybe get trapped on another farm. And what life will Sadhu have with only one arm? There's no way he'll manage well enough as a farmer to stay alive. I'll have to take care of him too. Then an idea occurs to me. A perfect idea. A terrible idea. It makes my stomach churn sour to consider it, but by the time we've wrapped up the interview and Khadijah's mom is putting away her notes, I know there's only one answer. Madame? I ask. Her eyes jump to meet mine in the rearview mirror, though her hands continue to pack her things. Yes, Amadou? I have a favor to ask. That stops her hands. Slumping, she says, I'm sorry, Amadou, but I don't have any legal papers for you. I can't bring you to France with us. I'm surprised. France still seems like the tip of the moon to me. Even though I was upset at her for leaving us, I've known all along her taking us there wasn't possible. But deep inside, it makes me feel warm and wanted that she's been trying to figure out what to do with us, too. That wasn't what I was going to ask, I try. Oh? I was wondering if you'd be willing to make one more stop before you go to Liberia and take us to that other cacao farm you mentioned, the one where they pay the people who work there? She looks at me in the mirror, her face blank. Khadijah and Seydu are staring at me. I gulp and finish what I need to say. I was wondering if you could ask them to give me a job. Though it's far, far out of the way, she does it. Khadijah, Seydu, and I sit in the back seat of the Jeep and watch the landscape move past us. Now that it's light out, I sit in the middle so that Seydu can have the window. A long time later, we pull out of a tunnel of bush and roll past cultivated groves of cacao trees. I feel myself tense up just looking at them, but then a warm hand slips into mine and gives a little squeeze. I look down, expecting to see Seydu's small fingers lace through mine, but instead I see that they're Khadijah's. I look into her face and see that her eyes are shining. It's gonna be okay, she whispers to me. The rattling of the Jeep over the ruts in the old road keeps the sound from the others. Mother said it'd be different here. You'll be safe. You'll get paid. But her voice shakes as she says it, and inside me a little worm of fear whispers, maybe. Both of us want to believe it, but neither of us is sure we can. It occurs to me that one way or another, Khadijah's about to leave our lives, probably forever. I squeeze her fingers and try to memorize the details of her face. Almond eyes, like her mother's, oval face, fuzzy braids finely finished and tied in a fresh knot at the base of her neck. Like it or not, over the course of everything that's happened, I've learned to care for the wildcat, and the thought of losing her grinds inside me like broken bones. It's hard to believe that only yesterday we were still in Khadijah's house in San Pedro. Hard to believe that it was only last night that we were drinking cocoa in the dark. Impossible to believe that 10 days ago I didn't even know she existed. Now we're driving through villages and fields that look achingly familiar. Finally, we pull into a little village. You stay in the car until I've had a word with Abdoulaye, Mrs. Copeland says, and gets out of the Jeep and heads inside a low, mud-walled building. Are you sure about this? Seydu's fear is a whisper at my elbow. I consider the building and the grove stretching behind it. No, I honestly answer, but I think we need to trust Mrs. Copeland. If this place is all she said it is, it will be a good thing for us. And if not, I shrug and turn to look him in the eye. Then we'll get away and make our way home. We did it before. I won't stop until you're safe. His old man eyes stare into mine as he weighs my words. Okay, he says. He straightens. I can do this. I know you can, I agree. Khadijah leans forward and rubs Seydu's back while she gives the clearing a critical look. It's cleaner than Moose's farm. And as a journalist, Mama knows a lot of things and even more people. She's probably right about this place. I look out the side window in time to see Khadijah's mother come out again with a tall, wiry man. In the doorway, I see her rummage in her purse and hand him some money. The little voice of fear inside me gets louder. I have to swallow hard so that it doesn't choke me. No, I tell it. You've spent enough time not trusting anyone. It's time to let go of that. Mrs. Copeland walks to the Jeep and opens our door. This is Abdoulaye, she says, waving her hand at the big man behind her. Abdoulaye, this is Amadou and Seydu, the boys I told you about. Good morning, boys, Abdoulaye says. Good morning, I mumble. She turns to us. I've given Abdoulaye some money to get you started, and he's agreed to let you work when you're not in school. If you ever want to go home to Mali, you tell him. He's agreed to arrange the transportation and send the bill to me in France. I look at Abdoulaye. I've worked cacao before. I can pay our way. So Mrs. Coplin says, "How old are you?" Abdullah asks me, looking me over. "How old do you have to be to work here?" At that, he throws back his head and laughs, the bump in his stringy throat bobbing up and down. "Well, we try to only have adults work the farm, but since you're the head of your little household, we can probably let you work half days when you're not in school, as long as you're at least 17. "How fortunate," I say with a completely straight face. "Yesterday was my birthday. I just turned 17. Abdullah laughs again. It's a kind laugh, and I begin to hope that perhaps this will all work out. Beside me, I see Khadijah's mother hide a smile with her hand. "Happy birthday," Abdullah says, holding out a hand to me, "and welcome." Khadijah's mother turns to us then. "Goodbye, boys. Thank you for everything you did for Khadijah. I'll make sure that your story gets told. I'll even send a copy of the article here, so you can see I've kept my word." I hold out my hand to her. "Thank you, madame, for all you've done for us." She takes my hand. Then, with a weak smile, she gets in the car. Khadijah scoops Seydu into a big hug. "Don't go," he sobs, clinging to her with his one good hand. "I don't have a choice," she says softly, "but I'll come back to visit if I ever can, and I'll write you letters. Will you write me too?" Seydu nods, the illiterate fool, and the two of them are hugging and crying. Losing Khadijah's like a knife in my side, painful, tearing. Finally, I can't take it any more, and I pull Seydu away. "All right, enough," I say gently, looping my arm around him. He sniffles for a bit, then wipes his face. Khadijah straightens, and the two of us take a long look at each other. There's a small silence. "Safe travels to France," I say finally. "Good luck here." Another silence stretches while we look at each other with nothing else to say. Then Khadijah steps forward and wraps her arms around me. To my surprise, I do the same. For a moment, we just stand there, then we pull away. "I won't forget you, Wildcat," I say. "Of course you won't," she says. "We're family." With that, she pulls us both into one big hug, and then turns and gets into the car. As the white Jeep disappears into the bush, Khadijah twists in her seat and waves to us out the rear window. I hold Seydu tight against me, and we both wave back until she vanishes from sight. Epilogue. I still count the things that matter. We were at the camp 17 weeks before Abdullah was able to take Seydu to a hospital to be fitted for his new arm. It showed up 2 weeks later. In another 4.5, he was using it easily. It was 29 days after getting it that Seydu stopped complaining of pain in the arm that's not there. Since then, he has gotten more and more comfortable. There's still a hint of the old man in his eyes, but a bit of my cricket is there too. Now a missing arm no longer stops him from hopping around. It was also over 3 months before we got our first letter from Khadijah in France, saying she and her mother were safe and well, and a clipping of her mother's article. But it was 8 months before Seydu learned enough to be able to read them to me. It was another 3 months after that before he knew enough to be able to write back. My writing still looks like I dipped 2 chickens' feet in ink and then made them fight while standing on my paper. My teacher says it's good for a first effort from a boy who's never moved anything smaller than a machete, but it's nothing compared to Seydu. Even with only one arm, Seydu is taken to school like a caged animal finally released. It was 7 months before we stopped hiding food to make sure we would have enough. 2 more months after that, I realized that nobody had hit me since I arrived. But it was a whole year before I stopped flinching when the men got too close. It was only last week that I overheard our teacher saying that he thinks Seydu might grow up to be a teacher too. "You don't need 2 arms to be a teacher," he said. "You only need a quick mind." Seydu has walked on air for the past 7 days. We've been paid every Friday for 54 straight Fridays. We're going home for the first time 20 Fridays from now. That's when I'll have enough money to pay my own way to Mali, give some money to Moki and Auntie, and still have enough to come back. I will miss only 3 paydays. Sadhu will miss only 3 weeks of school. There are also some things that I don't count. Every day when I come home from working in the fields, I have no idea how many pods are in my sack. I refuse to count the things that don't matter.